do you just want to see some parts?
I mean, is that if the presentation is the same?
Okay, so the goal is to talk about FlashArray, and FlashArray is a product that helps to integrate the one big functionality of the disk systems, of the storage systems, which is a snapshot. It's called Flash Copy by IBM, but Flash Copy and Snapshot are doing close to the same. And our product will integrate these functionalities into the IBM I partition to allow to run backups, but not only. We will see that we can do many things else. So first, let's talk about backups. In an ideal world, if we want to run backups, it's better to have no one working on the system during the backup. But if the backup are 10 hours long or even 2 hours long, most of the time it's not possible because there are customers using your data via the web, through the web, or an activity in the factory during 24 hours a day and close to 7 days a week, or night jobs that are longer and longer. And the worst is that there are users on our system. I don't understand why we still accept that there are users on our systems. It would be so better without any user, but that's so. We have to have users. What are the solutions to shorten, to have a bigger window for the backups? The first one is to use the HA solution. So if you have a replication with a production system and a second system for security and for HA, with a software replication, so Mimix, QuickEDD, Maxava, Itera, etc., then many people already do the backups on the HA system. That's a good idea. It works, nice. And then there's absolutely no lock and no wasted time on the production system. But you sometimes every objects are not replicated, so you may lose some libraries because you decided not to replicate them, or sometimes there are problems and objects logs or some messages telling that an object or another one is not replicated for any reason. So your backup are not consistent these days. And you don't backup everything. For example, you don't have a backup of Q user sys, so the IP configuration, SNA configuration, all those things, and no system 21, no save 21. And last thing, the tapes, the physical tapes, when that's on physical LTO, are on the remote side. If there are 20 or 15 kilometers, 50 kilometers between, that's not on the same site. Another option is to use this. I would like to add that here in the HA solution, if that's hardware replication, then it doesn't work because you cannot start a partition and an IBM I partition on replicated disk. So it's only for software replication. Save while active is another option. It's very nice also. It runs on the partition, on the production partition itself. It allows to have the users working while the backup is running. But there's a first phase in the save while active where you have to stop the users. If you don't do that, then some objects will not be backed up. Or could not be backed up, or you will not have a consistent database. So this is important to wait for the checkpoint or for the synchronization point. And this synchro point can take 3, 4, 5 minutes to obtain. Sometimes it's 10 minutes, and I've already seen 20 minutes before to have this point, this message. And again, no save 21. And if there's no tape, then you lock your your night job coming later, etc. So it's a good option, but there are still some issues with this. We have another solution, a new solution, that is to use this snapshot functionality, which will clone your production disk instantly. For this, you will use the external storage. So in IBM, the full IBM family of storage system, Storewise, SVC, Flash System, or DS8 something. We are also compatible with EMC VMAX to manage them to manage that kind of storage system from outside. And we plan to be compatible with other systems. And in combination with a FlashArray that will manage everything and manage the automation of all those things. So first, what is flash copy or snapshot? It's provided by the storage system. So if you have internal disk, it does not work. There is not this function on internal disk. It allows to make an instant copy, a point-in-time copy. So when you right-click on your Storewise interface and you say, I want to start the flash copy, then 1 second later, you have a copy of your original disk. It's hard to believe. Sure, there's nothing really copied inside the box. Everything is virtual. So it's hard to believe, but it works. We don't have the time here to explain how it works and how it's done. If you want, I can explain later if you have some time. But there you just have to believe me, it works. And both sides, both disks are completely independent. So you have the original one, which works normally and the users still work. And the second one, which is a copy of the data as they were at the instant of the beginning. And you can use them both without any problem. And that's a consistency group because if you have 50 different disks in your partition, then all the 50 disks are cloned at the same second. When all the time the flash copy remains active, your clone disk exists and may be used and can be used. As soon as you stop the function, as soon as you stop the flash copy, then the clone disk disappear. No more. So you destroy everything, delete everything, every data on it. So every history also. About the disk space, you don't need to have the double size of the disk space. If you have 5 terabytes on your original system, just for making backups, you can create a flash copy, create the clone disk, and in the beginning you will use 0 terabytes, 0 gigabytes. So for backups, if you want to use them to keep it active for 24 hours, usually it's between 5 to 15% of the original disk space. Most of the time it's less than 20%. Okay, how do we use this technology? You can use it manually. Everything that I explained there can be used with manual commands. So on the production system, you can use the command to quiesce the memory to the disk, so every data are clean. And you can connect to the Storewise and click on the start the flash copy, then connect to the HMC, start the partition in manual mode, and change the configuration of the partition. If you need just one time for an upgrade, it's good. It's okay. You don't need any product. You can do it automatically because you can see there are many hidden things that you have to know and to manage. This can be done with some programs. Maybe if you're a good programmer, it's not very hard to do. But that's for you have a lot of things to think about. like how to get a feedback, how to make sure you get a feedback. If you don't have a feedback to the production system, then you lose the feedback. You lose all the history. So you have to take care about this. Or you can do it professionally with a good product that does it. So with Flash4i. Okay, let's go inside the product. First, about the configuration. We need an external storage, for example, an SVC or Storewise or Vmax. Usually the configuration is like this. So you have your server, you have your IBMI partition, and you have one or two, normally two VIOS, and the disk from the disk bay are presented to the partition through the VIOS. That's a normal configuration. You also could have little configuration with only one or two partitions and a direct attach fiber channel card. So no switch, no VIOS, only the power and the Storewise. This works also. So in those two configurations, it works. Okay, so you have your power, your Storewise, and your production partition with here 4 disks of 1 terabyte, for example. That's the normal configuration. What we do first, we install the product. So Flash4i is there on the production system, and we will create the infrastructure. The infrastructure is the disk for the future disk of the clone partition and the flash copy function. This is not long to create, so it's very easy. Then on the HMC, we will create the clone partition and create all the zoning to have this partition ready. So through the VIOS or direct and the zoning and to present also the tape drives or tape libraries. When this is done, that's a normal configuration, normal partition configuration. When this is done and you have configured everything, daily, you have to use one command and only one command to start all the process and to start your backup. So today you have your normal jobs, and at 2 a.m. you stop the users, call a program that will run a backup with BRMS, for example, or without BRMS. You call a program that runs the backup. When the backup is finished, start again the users, and that's all. In that example, you will replace the core program to run the backup by this command, this single command, and with one environment name. We will see later how to define them. In those environments, you could have daily backup, weekly backup, monthly backup, for example. When you run this command, what do we do? The first thing is quiet the memory. Make sure that every data active in the memory is duplicated to the disk. So everything from the production system is on the disk. When it's done, we connect to the Storewise and we start the flash copy. This instantly populates the disk for the clone partition. And we have there, virtually, we have all the data from 2 a.m. and 30 seconds, the exact time where we started the flash copy. After that, those data here will remain. If you don't start any partition, the data here will remain the data from 2 a.m. and 30 seconds. While here, the users continue working. You can start a batch, you can do whatever you want. Then we connect to the HMC and we start the clone partition. This clone partition will see the disk, and these disks are coming from the production system. So you have everything. But as it's a clone of the production system, everything remains the same. So same name, same IP address, same automatic jobs, etc. So we first will change some things in the configuration. We change TCP IP configuration. We make sure that the production IP address will not start and no IP address will start, and we create our own IP address to send history back, to send feedback to the production. Then we hold every scheduled jobs to make sure that there's no production job that will start. We also change the resources of the tape drives or tape libraries, because when you change from one partition to another one, potentially the resource names are not the same. So we check the resource name to make sure that we will make the backup to the right drive or library. And sorry, and we make sure that no user subsystem will start. Only technical subsystem, our subsystem, and maybe QSysWork. Well, it's not necessary. QSysWork does not start in the beginning. And some details. When this is done, the partition is ready. We have the production data, but we didn't start the partition production, so we can do whatever we want. And what we want to do is start a backup. So there we run the backup you selected to do. If you have BRMS, you use BRMS without to change anything on your BRMS definition. If you don't have BRMS, you just have a program, an individual program that runs a save library and save IFS and whatever you want. You give us the name and we call this program. If you don't have, we provide an example of one program that could be used. Otherwise, if you don't have anything already, we have an option to run a save 21. You can run a save 21 every day. There's no users, no lock, and on the production system, the users are working normally. So you do whatever you want. When this is finished, if it's a save 21 or in the other case, on the fly, in real time, we will connect to the production system and send logs, messages, or some tables. We even send the job log of the job that has made the backup. So you can find every detail inside. And if you use BRMS, we send back the whole QUser BRM library. This library has every information that BRMS needs. So we send it and restore it. When it's finished, we can stop the clone partition and we can stop the flash copy. So we don't use any resource anymore. That's how it works. What kind of backups? So I already talked about it. If you use BRMS, it's not necessary, but if you use BRMS, we use the existing control groups. You don't have to change anything, except if there's a start subsystem at the end, for example, as an exit program. So this has to be removed. But if that's only if there's only backup instructions, then you don't change anything. And every data is put it back to the production system and restored. That's we do the way that IBM documented it. So that's exactly it. Otherwise, we can do a save 21, and you can do a save 21 every day, or call your own program. All those operations are driven from your IBMI partition and with one IBMI command, which is this one, a single command that does everything. You can integrate it into your scheduled job or into your batch job or wherever you want. It does several things. It does, in fact, 4 things, this command. It stops the clone partition, it stops the flash copy, quiets the memory, and start the flash copy. These two are in the same phase. and start the clone partition. So we also provide 4 commands that allow you to do step by step if you prefer. Okay, we talked about backups, but there are many other cases. For example, I don't know if you see the video correctly, but you can have debugs. And here you can see people debugging a truck live while it's driving. That's not exactly a good idea. Many developers do exactly the same. They connect on the production partition and debug live. Sometimes it may be dangerous. In this case, it would be very nice to have a clone of the production and run the debug that you like, any debug, and change the data as you like. Another example, I don't know if it still applies in UK, but I guess it will. It's not possible anymore with the GDPR to have real data for test or for education. So you have to anonymize the data. And this process to anonymize the data is quite long. It takes some time. So it's good to have a separate partition and independent data and time to do it, and time with the data that don't move. So you start a clone, you run your backup, and after the backup is finished, you can anonymize all the data. That's still the data from 2 a.m. They didn't change. They are stable, and you change whatever you want inside. And on the production system, the users are still working without to see anything. And on the clone partition, then your users, your developers can test or have education. So this is the schema you've seen earlier. We were talking about backups, but so you can do many other things after the backup is finished. Extract or anonymize the data, or start queries, make tests, anything like that. You also can do it on the first clone itself, the one that has been used for backup, but you could start another flash copy with another structure, so another set of disk and another partition, and have one partition for backup and test, and a second one for anonymize and education. So you can have up to 256 clone partitions. Okay, for example of another usage, you can create a safety copy. If you want to have a copy of your database every hour or every half an hour, for example, or 6 times a day, you can do it. You don't have to stop the users. It's not necessary. It's better for backups because it's better for backup to have consistent data. So it's recommended to stop the users for 2 or 3 minutes. That's all. But for a safety copy, it's not absolutely necessary. So you can do it on the fly. That's absolutely transparent for the users. No difference. They still work. They continue working without any problem. And you can do it on 6 or 24 structures for the flash copy. You can create an environment for test or debug, as we've seen before, or for anonymization or education. Or you can use whatever you want. You probably have many ideas of what you want to do and what you can do with your partition. Okay, let's have a look to some specific context. Many people have a DR solution or a HA solution. So there's data center 1 and data center 2. You have your production system here in data center 1 and a replication to the same structure with a hardware replication or software replication. And you have there a sleeping partition, if that's hardware, or a waiting partition, if that's software. So this is a usual configuration. What I explained to you is on the production system, install the product Flash4i and run a flash copy locally. That's what I told right before. But you also have the same disk here because that's a synchronized replication with the hardware mirroring. So we can manage to have flash copy, Flash4i connecting to this Storwize or this SVC and run the flash copy on this side and have a second partition here for the backup. So it's possible locally and remotely. Another example is to cascade the clone. So you have your production system with the disk. We will make a first flash copy. You can run your, you have the first flash copy, and on this partition, we will start automatically a program to anonymize all the data. This process takes 10 hours or whatever you want, whatever you need. So maybe it takes 10 hours. During those 10 hours, the data here are changed and completely anonymized. If the developer or testers come there and use this partition to make a test, and the first test fails, then you lose all your database. So you have to copy again and rerun your 10 hours of anonymization. What we propose to do is to have a second set of flash copy, a cascaded flash copy. That's the anonymized files that are copied here, that are cloned here, and your tester will run here. If 10 minutes later, they broke all the database, they say, oh, I need another one. Okay, no problem. You stop the flash copy, start it again from here, and after the IPL, they have a second chance to run their test, and they can do it when they want. Absolutely no problem. Okay, this was the presentation. I will go through a quick demo. Okay, this is the main menu of Flash4i product. In this main menu, so that's version 3 of the product. Currently, it's version 3. We are working on version 4 for the end of this year, let's say October probably. So in this version, there are feedback commands, commands where you see what happened. And then the other operation like configuration are here, and some other options here. Let's look quickly at the history. In fact, the main command is this one, to look at what happened and what has been done. And all the rest here are options inside this one. So we just will look at this one to know what happened. Okay, we are on the production system. We have several environments that we have to define. We will go through the definition or look at the definition a bit later. And for example, here that's to run BRMS backup. We want to, in this case, we want to run it to 2 different clones because that's an option. So that's what we programmed here. So there's clone 1 and clone 2. And there's one day clone 1, one day clone 2, and after we go one and the other one. It runs automatically at 2 a.m. And you have information. So if I look at this one, for example, this one, it says that it took 1 minute and 50 seconds to start. The FL clone command took 1 minute and 50 seconds. The clone partition has IPL'd and changed the configuration in 22 minutes. And after, the backup has run for 1 hour and 27 minutes. And after 38 hours, we stop the partition. And after 48 hours, 2 days, we stop the flash copy. You can see that in some cases, there are no time and there are error message. here it says that there has been 3 error messages. In this case, that's I have to explain you why. In this case, that's because there's not enough resources to start the partition, because we had, for another reason, we needed to put more CPU to some other partition, and there's not enough CPU for our test partition here to run both clone partition. And this issue, you can see it here. I will look at the messages. I can see the internal log from Flash. When I look at the logs, I can see that there are errors, and in those errors, I can see that there's an insufficient number of shared processing resource. So I have the information, I know why it was going wrong. In this case, an operator that can see this at 2 a.m. at 2:15 can immediately react and give some more resource and only start the partition, because the flash copy has been done, so the data are okay. You just have to start the partition. You can see that there are some messages saying what has been done and every step on the production system. You have every step and every information. And when it works, like in this case, for example, in this one, you can see that there are 50 messages and no error. In those messages, there are messages coming from the production system locally and messages generated on the clone system, on the clone partition. So we can see that this was a BRMS backup. So you have all the history. You also have the job log. There you have the job log of the backup from this night. This is the first, the Q startup. Here, the job log of the startup, and here, the job log of the job that has run the BRMS backup. We can see it here. Okay, beginning of processing of control group. So you have the job log as if it would have been on the production system. And there's another important part that we get, that's the system log. So this is the system log as it was on the, as it is, because this partition is not stopped currently, on the clone partition. Okay, I quickly go through the configuration and then I'm finished with this short demo. We have to define the environment. We will define what kind of storage we have. We will define the information on the partition. For the partition, for example, I have to say, I give a name and a text. I give the IP address of the HMC, the username for connecting. We are connecting using SSH, and the definition of the server and the partition. And that's all. That's all we need. The same for the storage. Give an IP address, username, and the consistency group. And that's all. And with this, we can manage to look at the partition itself and start and stop the flash copy. And in the environment, we will say what is the storage we want to use, what is the partition we want to use, the one we defined right before. If there are independent ISP, we have to say it. We give the future IP address of the partition, of the clone partition, so it can be on the network. And we say, I want to run a BRMS backup, and that's the name of the control group. And there are many other parameters that we don't have the time to look at now. As you see, that's only definition. I didn't write any program to do that, just definition and one command, flclone, to start everything. Okay, let's come back to the demo. Here are some screen copy screen to be in the demo if the to be in the PowerPoint if the demo wouldn't work. So we have it there. So to have a summary of this, that's our product. Why is it the best product in the world? That's a product with many functions and parameters. You don't need to write programs. There are places where you can, but it's not necessary. It's really easy, very easy to install, very easy to use, and the upgrade is done in only a few minutes. No need to have a consultant for one day to make an upgrade and to have a new version. Just a few minutes. There's openness. We support IBM storage systems, but also EMC VMAX and other vendors' storage systems. You at several places you can add your own exit programs. There are many places where you can put your own exit programs and do many other things that only backup. There's a documentation, a big documentation, more than 150 pages. There's a hotline, and we have scheduled version. So next one is planned for autumn this year. And we have, as Bruno told it in the beginning, more than a lot of reference already, and well-known customers. I guess you know those names, and distributed in 9 countries in Europe. There are some prerequisites. It has to be in version 7.1 minimum, and it runs, and it's okay in 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. We already have at least 10 partitions running in 7.4. Only external disk, no internal disk, otherwise it doesn't work. And one free product that's to be installed. For the storage, so all the IBM family storage with Spectrum Virtualize version 7.1 also, and a flash copy license or a snapshot license or availability if that's not an IBM system storage system. And you need some additional disk space. Depends on what kind of usage you want to do of this. If that's only for backup, so daily backup and change every day, it's less than 20%. Most of the time it's between 5 and 15%, but it's hard to calculate or to estimate. So let's say less than 20%.